Happy New Year's to everybody. The 10th ranked Miami Hurricanes win 24-14 over number 2 Ohio State, advancing to the semifinals at the Fiesta Bowl on January 8th against either Georgia or Mississippi, as Miami now is in position for maybe a national title, the first one since 2001. I can't believe it's actually happening. And I know there's been positive things with this team throughout the season, but here we are, pulling off this upset was big. And there's a lot to get into with this game, but just in general, big picture wise, last game, I thought that the topic of conversation was the validation that Coach Cristobal mentioned. I thought that was a big thing. I thought it was true, that win validated everything that they've been kind of working towards, the proven results. But this win is even bigger than that. This is the biggest win since back in those 01-02 seasons as Miami played for the national title. As everybody knows, and I said in an interview, I didn't think that loss to Ohio State in 02, I didn't think even if Miami pulled this off, that it would erase it. And I still stayed true to that. However, this has to feel good for Miami fans with how they played, how it looked. There was no controversy with this one. Miami outplayed Ohio State. Now, certainly at the end of the game, Miami had to make some plays, but they led throughout, and they did a really good job of it. Players on both sides of the ball deserve a lot of credit. Coaching staff, obviously Coach Cristobal as well, for pulling this off. This is going to be something that fans are going to remember. This is going to be one of these lasting impact victories. This is going to be one of those highlighted wins from the program, and it's great. It's great the way it happened, how it happened, against who it happened. Everyone respects what Ohio State is and what they did last year and what they've done this year and multiple years. They put the graphic on the TV there. Since that 02 game, Ohio State, not only have they won 2 national titles, but they've had 20 10-win seasons. So everybody understands the quality of this one. I certainly do. Covering this team, I've talked about the disappointing losses so much. Doing these recaps or whatever it might be, all the articles I've written, so many disappointments. This was not one of them. Everybody should be excited. It's a great way to cap off 2025, going into 2026 here. And, just looking back on the win, things that stood out to me. Look, the way that it was going, I thought it was important for Miami to show some signs on both sides of the ball early in the game that, hey, we could stick with them. And then also maybe, make Ohio State uncomfortable. So I thought Miami did that. I thought they did pretty good. I know that fumble by Mark Fletcher was disappointing, but, they kind of bounced back. And Mark Fletcher deserves a lot of credit for his ability to bounce back. And, 90 rushing yards on the day. He catches that touchdown pass from Beck there. Not huge numbers from Beck. I'll get more into that. But that sequence there in the second quarter was big too. So early on, I thought it was good on both sides of the ball. Miami, the pass rush, that needed to be there. That certainly was. They did a great job there with the sacks, and Ruben Bain was huge. Akeem Mesidor, other guys. You saw Marquise Lightfoot in there. You saw Armando Blunt applying pressure. You saw the defensive tackles too. So I thought it was all around performance. But so in the second quarter, they have that nice drive, and Fletcher on a nice reception, a rare reception. Beck throws it to him, does a good job. They get the touchdown, and I thought this was going to be big in a game. And in terms of a sequence, a rapid fire sequence, whatever it might be, like big plays either side, and I think that could have decided it, and it did for Miami. And I didn't see it coming. I think, again, what I said in the beginning, there's been positive signs from the Hurricanes throughout the season. But to see what they've done today, what they've done lately, the 6 straight wins, put themselves in this position, earn the playoff bid, and then kind of take advantage from that. But again, so they get that touchdown. I thought that was big. You go up 7-0. That's nice. But then less than 2 minutes later, Keontae Scott, 72-yard interception return for a touchdown. It was really the play of the game. That's what put Miami up 14-0. That's a big deficit for Ohio State, the biggest deficit they faced all year. And again, that puts them in some uncomfortable position and gives Miami a lot of confidence. So not only are you getting the offensive touchdown, now you got the defensive touchdown, you're applying pressure, you're doing a good job moving the ball. And I think that certainly really helped. So up 14-0, Ohio State misses a field goal there to end, in the second quarter and go into halftime up 14-0. And I thought that was great. I'm sure in the obviously plenty of game to go. And as we saw, Ohio State came back. Ohio State came out in that third quarter, looked good, looked really good, looked different than in the first half. And that, from a Miami standpoint, that's not what you wanted to see. You wanted to see more of the same and Miami build on what they did in the first half. But Ohio State, to their credit, came out, had a nice drive, gets right back in it, cuts the lead 14-7. There was a little bit of a dogfight, and certainly that field goal by Carter Davis, the 49-yarder, I'm sure at the time, I know when he lined up, based on how things went against A&M, and yes, I understand that it was very windy, but that extra point didn't look great, but he drills the 49-yarder, and so going up 17-7 proved to be a big point in the game at that time, just to give a little more cushion for the Hurricanes there. What was good. So, and then I think one thing that was standing out to me, the way the game was going, is that the clock just kept ticking and in Miami's favor, having a lead, but they were able to kind of get the clock, wind it down, and there wasn't a lot of opportunities for Ohio State. And it just kind of really felt like it shortened the game a little bit on either possessions or just times to make plays. Miami did a great job of that and really felt in control. Again, got that 14-0. Look, Ohio State's doing a good job of trying to mount the comeback. And again, Miami on both sides of the ball making plays. So it's 17-14. And you're seeing the big plays. You're in the passing game. You're seeing Julian Sand get a little more comfortable, certainly. Very accurate there in the second half. Off to a good start. As the second half was going, he was able to connect with Jeremiah Smith, who had a huge game, the 7 catches, over 150 yards. It felt like, that touchdown on fourth down was huge. It just felt like, certainly, it was not going to be given to Miami. Once they got that touchdown, make it 17-14. But then that drive, and as you've seen all season long with this team, they've been able to have these key drives late in games to pull it out. And that's exactly what happened. There's these signature drives. So you're up 17-14, 6 minutes to go. And it starts off with a Fletcher 19-yard run. And yes, you got to get more yards. You got to keep it going. But it sets the tone, really. And he had more rushing yards kind of piled up on that drive. I thought that was big. They relied on the run game. This is what they've done throughout the year. They really feel like they can run the ball late in games because they feel like the offensive line has been doing its job of really being physical at the point of attack and really kind of wearing down the defensive line, the defensive players. And that's what we saw. We saw the run game. You get that going. But then we've seen this too, and it's really interesting and a little bit crazy to watch, but it wasn't Gerard Pringle, the backup. It was Sharmar Brown, and Marty goes in there, hadn't played all game, gets in there, makes a nice catch for a first down, and then he has a nice run, a 13-yard run. So he is becoming a focal point there late in the game, and I'm sure everybody was watching like, why isn't Fletcher in, or even Pringle, why isn't somebody else in? But this coaching staff, they believe in their backs, and they've said that all year long, and we've seen Brown do this late in games, but at this stage, it was huge, obviously. And then, you kind of keep the drives going. And I haven't mentioned C.J. Daniels. I've touched on all the other players, but I thought it was important for Carson to have a good game in this one. I thought they needed to be more balanced than they were against A&M. Now, the numbers didn't show it. Carson just goes for 138 yards, but I thought he was doing a good job of making the passes, or making some impactful passes, either for first downs, so not the big gains. And you're not seeing Malachi Toney. He didn't have a good game in this one with the fumbles and wasn't a big factor. But C.J. Daniels really stepped up. And I thought they needed someone on the perimeter, either C.J. or Keelan, to really make plays in this one. And C.J. did a good job. Those catches early on. But then that 3rd and 4, and we saw it was an interesting play call. We saw that timeout, Dawson talking to Carson, and Carson just delivered a quick pass to CJ, who got upfield. And you haven't really seen CJ in that role too often this year, catching passes like that. But he did a great job. They really trust him. He's a guy that stepped up, and had a very good performance and came up with a huge play. And then as it's going on, Marty punches it in there, and they get the interception at the end with Jacoby there. So 24-14, and you can see everybody in the crowd. I'm sure everybody at home, everybody on the message boards, everybody was just really excited for this one, and you should be. A lot of disappointment, as I've mentioned, but this is not one, and certainly a really good performance. And just touching on a few more things, a few more guys I definitely want to point out, and starting with Carson Beck. So not a huge statistical performance, 19-26 for 138, does have the touchdown, but I thought his runs were big too, and even with his passes, although they weren't passes thrown downfield very far, I thought he was doing a good job of being accurate. He had a couple incompletions early, then it gets on a really good stretch, as we've seen all season long, of delivering accurate passes, making first downs. Again, the runs were nice to see as well. Again, just kind of keeping some positive yardage and doing a really good job of kind of just managing the offense. He didn't throw the ball in bad spots and make bad decisions throughout the game. I thought he did a good job. Again, the passing yardage total wasn't good, but overall, I thought he played well. I really did. And I think sometimes with quarterbacks and how you evaluate them, the way I watch them, it doesn't always come down to statistics. And I just thought Carson played well and really did impact this team's ability to win the game. And when you go up 14-0, I think it is important to be, yes, you want to be aggressive, but also just understand you do have to play the game. You have to play the score. And I thought he did a good job of that. Again, came up with some big plays, certainly, and some ones that were needed. And even that pass to Fletcher did a really good job of just kind of getting it quick to him in a kind of an interesting formation, and throwing the ball to Fletcher out of the backfield. And that was really the only option, or delivering an accurate pass to CJ out to the flat on that key play late in the game. I thought it was good. I thought it was good. He didn't come up with bad plays. That was good. And speaking of negative plays or bad plays, Miami just didn't have them. I touched on the fumble, but they did a good job of kind of avoiding negative yardage plays. They didn't have any penalties, and we've seen this team. I felt like that was one of the reasons why I was hesitant with this team, or kind of doubting the success they could have, is because of all those loads of penalties we saw throughout the season, and we did see it clean up. I thought it was going to pop up today, and it didn't. Not only did they lessen it, they had 0 penalty calls for 0 yards in terms of the penalties that were accepted. So shout out to everybody, both sides of the ball, because both sides of the ball certainly had their issues with penalties throughout the year, but not tonight in a huge game. Everybody deserves credit for that. And one of the things that has stood out to me about this team, it's something that I like with all teams and really in all sports, but just the veterans that they have on the roster. They've got guys that have played a lot of football in year 5, in year 6. These seniors or even the juniors have played a lot. Your junior standouts like Ruben Bain, a 3-year starter, Francis Maui-Noah, a junior, but a 3-year starter. So a lot of experience on both sides of the ball. I always like to rely on that, and certainly you get the influx of talent with the freshmen mixed in with Malachi and a guy like Bryce. So that's good to see too. And Gerard Pringle's another one. But I just really like it when they have these teams that are just led by its upperclassmen. And that's what Miami has. And you can see it, and this is to credit to them. Not satisfied by getting into the playoffs. Not just satisfied by that. They go out and beat Texas A&M. Not just satisfied with that win. They come out strong. They come out, they weren't just glad to be at the Cotton Bowl or have a playoff win that hasn't happened at Miami, or, getting to play on this stage. No, not at all. And I think that's what you see with this team. And Coach Cristobal has talked about all season long, this 1-0 mentality, but with where they're at now, they're going to semifinals. They're certainly going to have a chance to win that game and the next one. I just think the next one, we haven't really talked about it, but the national title game, because you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. And Miami was really struggling just to, with those ACC losses, you didn't think it was going to work out. And it has, and all of a sudden, yes, the national title game is at home in Miami. So one more win at the Fiesta Bowl, either Georgia or Ole Miss. Certainly another opponent that Miami will respect, but certainly Miami should come in with confidence and feel like they can win that game. So a lot of excitement with this team. I really can't believe that it's actually happening. I know everybody hopes for these positive results, me covering the team. It's a lot more fun covering a team that is doing well as opposed to disappointing and having frustrating results for different reasons. So it is certainly exciting. So we'll see what happens. Again, they deserve a lot of credit. I want to make sure I pass that along. And again, I'm sure you guys are really excited. So shout out to everybody that's been following the videos and the channel as well as the website. Again, Happy New Year. Drop in the comments below just how excited are you for this team? And, absolutely you should be excited moving forward. Miami's got a great chance to win the next game as well. So definitely stay locked into the channel and the website. I really appreciate everybody. Thank you for watching. Have a good rest of the day and take care.